Hi, I'm Bob Russo, the product designer here at Avid Technology for the shared storage products. Welcome and thanks for attending. Avid led the revolution in nonlinear editing and digital audio workstations for over 25 years and has a long history of developing the easiest and most robust local and shared storage in the entertainment industry. Avid extends the proven and trusted storage suite with a new entry-level ISIS 1000. Based on the hardware and software that is used daily by the most demanding broadcast, media enterprise, and post-production professionals at over 3,000 facilities worldwide. Avid has worked closely to optimize the performance of the ISIS file system for collaborative media production with over a dozen applications, including Adobe Premiere, Apple Final Cut Pro 10, Avid Media Composer, DaVinci Resolve, and Pro Tools, just to name a few. Now let's take a look at the interface for the ISIS 1000 and just how easy it is to use. Managing the ISIS 1000 is similar to working with a home router. Just type in the IP address for the system. Any computer on the network can manage the ISIS, even if it's not an editing client. You're presented with a login page for the management console. I'm going to log in as an administrator. Later, I'll show you how users without administrator privileges can still use the system. Once you're logged in, you're presented with a very easy-to-use interface. If you've ever used an Avid shared storage product before, you should find the interface extremely familiar. The first thing we'll look at are workspaces. You can think of these as small drives or partitions that can be created. You can see I have a number of workspaces created already. This is how to create a new workspace. Select New, and the side panel opens. Give it a name and size. These both can be changed later, so don't worry. When you create the workspace, you can set up warnings to be notified if it is starting to get full. I'm going to have the system let me know if I have less than 5 gig in the workspace or it's 90% full. This way I'll be notified if it's full and can resize it to add space. I can also assign rights to the workspace at this point. I can give one set of users read and write, another set read only, and these users have no access to the workspace and don't even know it's available. Just like with the name and size, don't worry if you aren't sure who needs access to the workspace. This can be easily changed later. Hit Apply and Close. Now that I've created this workspace, I can select it and see the specifics for it. I can do this for all the workspaces. I can see the Black Sales Edit workspace is colored red, where the others are green. This is showing me that it's crossed one of my event triggers and I should take action. If I need to create an identical workspace, I can duplicate it. This workspace has the identical size and user permissions. When I'm done, I can just delete the workspace, gaining back all the storage. I can create up to 1,024 workspaces that can be resized as many times as I want, as often as I want to, even while the workspaces are being used. Because it's so easy to create, resize, and delete workspaces, they can be used as a method to separate assets for specific projects into specific workspaces. When a project is finished, I can zero out the storage, gaining back the unused space for other projects, or simply delete it, gaining all the storage back. Now let's move on to users. The ISIS 1000 can have 5,600 individual user accounts. There's actually no reason that everyone can't have their own account. I'm going to make a couple users. The first is going to be a trusted assistant editor. So I'm going to select Users, New, and type a name and password. Because this is my trusted assistant, I'm going to give that user the ability to resize workspaces by selecting Can Resize. This way, if you're not around and the workspace is almost full, this user can log in and resize the workspace. I'm going to give this user specific read-write to these workspaces and read-only to the others. There's no access to the other workspaces, so an editor can have specific privileges to a set of workspaces and not others. The next user is a freelance editor. I'm not going to allow for the ability to resize the workspace. Another one of the unique features of ISIS is the ability to limit the bandwidth any specific user can read or write to the system. I'm going to limit the bandwidth to 5 megabytes, and since I want that user to work on a specific project, I'm not going to give them access to the other workspaces. I'll log out as the administrator and log in as the assistant editor. As you can see, the management console has changed. I have a subset of the controls and can only resize workspaces I have access to. Now I'll log in as the freelancer. You see now I only have access to the system status history and the installers. This way a user can log into the ISIS that's never been connected to the ISIS before and mount workspaces. I'll cover that a little bit later. I'll log back in as the administrator. Now let's take a look at bandwidth limits. This is yet another unique feature. You saw earlier how I was able to apply a limit to the bandwidth based on a user account. This can also be applied on a specific computer, no matter the user that is logged in. I can see all the computers connected and simply type in a number, and instantly the bandwidth is reduced. This is great if you have a user that needs to copy a large number of files, but you don't want to have that impact the performance of the rest of the users. Now we'll move to connected clients. I can look here in the status panel and see all the connected clients and the bandwidth they're using. If I need more detail, I can look in client bandwidth. This shows me all the connected users and the bandwidth they are using in greater detail. The next thing I'll cover is the system status history. I can get here by selecting System Status History under Tools or by selecting one of the lights in the status menu. This takes a snapshot every minute and I can see the status of the entire system. This includes all the connected computers and how much bandwidth they are using. It's a powerful way to see what's been taking place on the system and warn you if there's an issue. I can see that I have 3 computers attached and the bandwidth they are using. The last thing we'll cover is the software to mount the ISIS workspaces, specifically the ISIS client. Selecting it will download the client so it can be installed. This is great when you want to connect a computer. There's no need to have to sneak or net around software. Everything you need is available to every computer that has an account. There's a lot more to the management console than what we've just covered. If you have specific questions, I'll be happy to answer them after the webinar. Now let's take a look at the client manager. This is how workspaces are mounted. When it's launched, it will automatically discover any ISIS the computer is attached to. No need to have to mount network shares or use complicated UNC paths. Just log in, and all the workspaces my user has are available. Double-clicking on a workspace, and it's mounted. If I right-click, one of the things I can do is assign Auto Mount. Each time I log in, the workspace will be mounted. On Windows, the client is slightly different. I'm able to auto mount like I can on the Mac, but I'm also able to use the Windows login. This combined with Auto Connect, and the user doesn't have to know anything about ISIS. They log into their computer and the workspaces automatically mount. I can assign a mount point, either as a letter or UNC path. If I select the letter, each time this workspace is mounted, that same letter will be used. This is important when working with file-based media, so the path doesn't change and the media remains online. This Mac is connected via 2 1 gig connections. Using a unique technology we call Avid Adaptive Load Balancing, the ISIS client can combine the bandwidth of 2 connections, nearly doubling the performance. This is a low-cost method to improve performance while adding resiliency without having to run an expensive 10 gig connection. The workspaces act like locally attached drives and are available on a desktop for both the Mac and Windows. Assuming the user has the correct permissions, any number of users can read and write to the same workspace at the same time. Avid shared storage solutions have been deployed in over 3,000 of the most demanding film, video, and broadcast environments. Environments where every second counts, and reliability is not a request, but a requirement. The Avid ISIS 1000 brings the same technology to smaller creative teams. Now, let's take a look at collaborative workflows with Final Cut Pro 10. Now I'm going to talk about a collaborative workflow with Final Cut Pro 10 and the ISIS 1000. With the ISIS 1000, the Final Cut Pro 10 libraries, media, and cache can all be stored on an ISIS workspace without any concern for performance. In this example, I'm going to create a new Final Cut Pro 10 library and store it on my ISIS workspace. By doing this, it doesn't matter what computer I sit at, I can always open my library. The first thing, modify the storage locations to the same ISIS workspace as the library. I'm going to add media that's stored on the ISIS to the library by selecting File, Import Media. And I'm going to leave the media in place. There's some other media I need that I know another editor has used and it's been logged. I could import the media because it's stored on ISIS, but I wouldn't get any of the comments or logging information. Select File, Open Library. I'll select Other and Locate since I've never opened this before. Navigate to the ISIS workspace with the library and open it. Now, it's important. Final Cut Pro 10 does not allow two users to have the same library open at the same time. So before you do something like this, make sure the library is closed. I'll create a new event in the library I'm currently working on and copy the clips. This event has proxy media, so I'll take that with me. I'll close the library, and that quickly, the clips are available in my library because none of the media was actually moved, only the clips. Another method to collaborate is by duplicating the library. Just select it in the Finder and select Duplicate. I'll also create a new folder for media for my project. Open my copy of the library and set the storage locations to the new folder I've selected. Now we'll use the consolidate command to create a copy of the media. This doesn't duplicate the media, but creates what's called hard links and doesn't use additional storage. Once the background tasks are complete, you'll see the media is now in my folder. With the ISIS 1000, you can see how easy it is to share libraries and media between any number of seats of Final Cut Pro 10 without the need for duplicating media. And now I'm going to talk about project collaboration with Adobe Premiere and ISIS 1000. So now I'm going to talk about a collaborative workflow between ISIS 1000 and Adobe Premiere. I'm going to create a new project that I'll store on my ISIS workspace. I've created a folder for all my projects for organization. This way in a facility with a number of computers, it doesn't matter what computer I sit at, I can always open my project. Before I get started, the first thing I'm going to do is set the media cache files and database to an ISIS workspace. Now I'll import some media that I have stored on ISIS. I need to use some media from a different project that's also stored on ISIS. Select the media browser and navigate to the Premiere project folder on the ISIS workspace and open the project. I can see all the clips and sequence, along with the metadata that was added to the clips. Make the selects and drag the clips to my current project. The media isn't being duplicated. I've just made copies of the clips for use in my project. With the ISIS 1000, you can see how easy it is to share projects and media between multiple seats of Adobe Premiere and not have to duplicate any of the media. Now, I'm going to talk about project sharing with Avid Media Composer and ISIS 1000. Now I'm going to talk about collaborative workflows with Media Composer and ISIS 1000. From the very beginning, Media Composer was designed with collaboration in mind. And with ISIS 1000, this collaboration is extended that simply no other shared storage can match. One of the unique features of Media Composer with ISIS is more than one editor can open the same project at the same time. I'm going to navigate to my ISIS workspace and select my project. I can see other editors have these bins open. When I open them, I see a small red lock icon. This means I have read-only access to the bin. I can still open these clips and use them in a sequence without issue. I'll create a new bin and I'll link to some media. In my project window, it has my computer name listed and there's a green lock, meaning I have read and write access to the bin. Now, let's take a look at this project in other seats of Media Composer. There's no issue with collaborating between Mac and Windows computers. You can see the green locks on these bins where they are red here. I can log some clips and save it to a bin. When I open that bin in another Media Composer, all that metadata is available. Another thing I can do is export an AAF with linked media and import that into Premiere. You see the sequence opens with all the media linked. No duplication of media at all. Avid has a long history of developing the easiest to use and most robust shared storage in the entertainment industry. The ISIS 1000 brings the same proven technology to smaller creative teams. I'm Bob Russo. Thanks for attending.